Hi, and welcome back to Community Voices, brought to you by Radnor Studio 21 in downtown Wayne. I'm your host, AnnaMarie Jones. Democratic incumbent Amy Goldman and GOP incumbent Chuck Madden will be my final guests wrapping up the Radnor Township School District candidate interviews. I'm eager to chat with Amy and Chuck, as they are the veterans with a whole host of knowledge from what makes the school board tick to what we need going forward to affect positive changes within our schools. Most importantly, we will find out why they want to continue their service. And with me right now is Amy. Thank you so much for being here today, Amy.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity, AnnaMarie.
Absolutely.
Privileged to be here.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to start with the first question, and that is, what is your motivation for wanting to continue to serve, because you are just ending your first term, which was 4 years, right?
Yes, yes. What continues to motivate me is just the privilege that having been in this capacity has afforded me. Two of my passions have been for a long time public education and public service, and I have been a participant in multiple volunteer opportunities, both in the Radnor School District and in other educational settings, to volunteer and give back and help promote public education, because there's really nothing more important you can give a child than a quality education. And I mean holistically, not just in terms of academics, but the whole educational experience is crucially important for students as they go through these formative years, to be able to have the skills and experience and confidence to go out and conquer the world in whatever way conquer means for that individual child. So over the past 4 years, I've had the privilege of really being able to understand how the whole educational system works and work collectively with an incredible group of people, from my board colleagues to the administration, to the staff, to the families, to other members of our community, to come together as a village and really try to make a difference in the lives of children. It's a real privilege, and if I have that privilege to do it for another term, I would feel incredibly grateful and lucky. And it's motivating every day to get up and think that you can make a difference in the lives of children. There really isn't any greater calling, as far as I'm concerned, as to be able to help further the life path of a child.
Fantastic. And I've been to school board meetings, and I see that you're all doing a tremendous job, so thank you. It takes a lot to serve and then to run again.
Yes.
So you talked a little bit about your volunteerism before getting on the board. Can you talk to me more about how your work-life experience helped you to become a board member and how it'll continue to help you?
Absolutely. Well, professionally, before becoming a full-time volunteer, I did television advertising, sales, and marketing, and I had my primary focus on new business development. And some of the skills that are required in order to effectively develop new business are being open-minded, being flexible, thinking outside the box, being able to work collaboratively with a whole bunch of different people who have to come in together around a project, and also to have the business acumen to be able to make sure that that project is delivered on time and on budget. And prior to being on the school board, I applied those skills to my volunteer work in the district. So whether it was working in a volunteer capacity for an individual PTO committee, or it was serving in a leadership capacity as a PTO president for the middle school, which I was, and then later for this new position that was created after I concluded my presidency, which was to work with all 5 PTOs and try to have them come together in ways that maybe they hadn't previously, and do some of their individual activities more collaboratively to leverage their impact and efficiency. I think that those skills, both as a professional and a volunteer, prepared me for the role of being on a school board. I will say, though, that one of the things that is really crucial, that might be a slightly different skill, is that a legislative capacity is a little bit different than an executive capacity. Every single action by the school board is done by the will of the majority. There is really legally no individual action that any individual board member can take. So one of the things that I was fortunate to be able to be exposed to and hone throughout my professional and volunteer careers was to be able to build consensus and try to bring people together around a common idea. Because without that consensus building, there's really nothing that can get done as a matter of course in terms of school board action. And there's also a matter of resiliency too, because oftentimes you can believe so passionately in a cause and think that something is really super for students and should be done, but maybe sometimes people aren't going to agree with you, and that's just sort of the way it goes. And your ability to be resilient and say, you know, sometimes people will agree with my vision and sometimes they won't, and we'll move on to the next thing is also a really critical skill for being effective on a school board. And you know, mitigating your own frustration sometimes is, you know, sometimes it goes your way and sometimes it doesn't, but it really, every day that you're in a legislative capacity, if you want it to, it can expand your skill set. And so I think that as much as I feel I might have brought to this role, I'm still on that continuous learning curve, and that's really exciting because after all, we're in an educational setting, and part of our mission is to instill the joy of lifelong learning for our community, and as school board members, I'm right there with them. I love to learn every day.
Yeah, and you're touching upon exactly my curiosity about what it's like to work collectively on a school board. You spoke a little bit about your individual, working with others and just trying to figure out how to make decisions together and get them to probably back some of your interests. What is it like to work collectively on the school board, and how do you do that in a way that makes it as seamless as possible?
Well, I think trying really hard to be a good listener. I mean, people come to a particular topic of conversation from different vantage points, and understanding that what might seem obvious and intuitive to you might not to someone else, and for a very valid reason. And I think making sure that you have the bandwidth to be able to entertain other people's ideas, be a good listener, try to really understand the why of how they come to the position as they do, and forge some sort of a compromise or negotiate to that compromise to be able to find that common ground so that you can move forward for the common good. And that really, I think, sets a tone for the rest of the school district, how we operate with one another, how we conduct ourselves. Really, people take cues from that. Our students are watching, the staff is watching, the community members are watching. And I've always hoped that the school board and any other form of local government can really be something that the residents of that community can feel proud of. They might not always disagree with the decisions that we're making, but if we have good process and we conduct ourselves in a way that is inspiring to others, then I think we're performing community service even outside of the issues and actions we take in and of themselves.
Yes, if people can watch you learn how to disagree or agree on disagreeing, or whatever that phrase is.
It's funny that you say that, because our superintendent has a saying that he repeats quite often, is that you can disagree without being disagreeable. And I think that that's something that we try to live up to every day. And you mentioned the students, and one of the things that I get most excited about is the fact that we are a government body right here in our own community, and to get real-world experience like that isn't always easy for students. And so one of the things I'm really passionate about is student service on the school board. And that's, when you talk about motivation, something that really motivates me. I get really excited when those assignments are made to board committees each year, because the student voice in our deliberative process is so crucially important. After all, we're making the decisions for our students, and we might have our adult perspectives from through a variety of lenses, but how does the student feel? And when you have a student, as we have had, who completes a term of service with us, in fact, we had one who was serving on the policy committee that I have chaired for the past 2 years, who said at her recognition moment in one of our winter school board meetings when her term ended, that because of her service on that committee, she is going to pursue public policy as her major in college. I mean, even as I tell you that right now, I get chills, because that is the kind of thing where we can make a difference. If we can touch each and every one of our 3,800 students in that way and inspire them and find that spark, whatever it is, and it's different for each and every student, that's what motivates me. That's what makes it such a privilege and so exciting to be able to serve in this capacity.
That's fantastic. And speaking of, I'm going to jump around in my
Sure.
questions, but speaking of policy, what role does policy play in the functioning of the board? And is there a certain policy that you are passionate about right now that you're working on or would like to continue to work on in the next term?
Yes, well, I have been served on the policy committee ever since I was first elected in 2015, and I've been chair of the committee for the past 2 years. And I now consider myself a policy wonk. I welcome myself to the ranks of the policy world because I really enjoy policy work. It gives you a chance, like I said earlier, to look at the laws that govern our district, which is essentially what policy is, through a variety of different perspectives. You hear from the students. We have a teacher representative on the policy committee. The administration has its own thoughts about policy. The community has its own thoughts about policy. But policy really provide the guardrails for the operation of the district. It's crucially important. In fact, in 2001, there was a study done by the Iowa Association of School Boards, which it's really the only study of its kind where it looked at school boards and said what makes a school district that is functioning well versus not functioning not so well. What are the different characteristics there? And they found that optimally functioning school boards make a difference when it comes to student achievement. And one of the key factors that went into the success of some of those school boards where the students were achieving optimally was your commitment to setting policy and continuously evaluating policy. So I hold that really dear, and it gives us, like I said, those guardrails for how the district should operate so that all the oars are rowing in the same direction. We have just shy of about 300 policies on our books, and they cover everything from our finances to our operations to student conduct and community activities. So at least there's a common set of expectations for how the district operates, and it's just, to me, it's something that we really need to be mindful of. Aside from setting the budget and hiring the superintendent, setting policy is a really important function of a school board. In terms of a favorite policy, I would say, we have a project that we're working on right now. We set these annual district goals every year as a board in tandem with the superintendent. And one of them that we're working on right now is evaluating student wellness from a variety of different perspectives, looking into the physical wellness of our students, the emotional wellness of our students, their security and safety, because of course school safety has become such a huge issue. So much of what will inform any recommendations that come out of that study that our administration is doing will be how should we perhaps be tweaking our policies. So I'm really interested to see where that work goes in terms of policy adaptations that we might need to make. We may, in the scheme of things in terms of school safety, we have a variety of different policies that address school safety, and school districts right now are moving into the realm of creating one comprehensive school safety policy. And so that's something that we might be working on in the near future. And we just had a policy meeting yesterday, and in the not too distant future, we're going to be taking a look at our homework policy, because I know that with our change in school start times, which is hopefully going to do some transformational things in terms of student wellness for us, it's not the only thing that can help us in terms of our students getting optimal sleep. We really need to look at homework in terms of its mission, its purpose, what are the guidelines around that for our students. And so coming down the pike very soon will be a review of the homework policy that we do currently have on the books and seeing if perhaps that policy needs some adaptations.
Well, I would love to be part of that meeting because I have a lot to say on that.
I think a lot of parents do, actually, so it should be exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, and the students have a lot to say about it, and I'm sure the teachers have a lot to say about it. So done the right way, we can really, have a robust conversation about it that hopefully meets everybody's needs.
Great. Well, Amy, I want to thank you so much for being here today. The time went so quick. And I just really, I'm just in awe of what you all do. And thank you for being here and helping to wrap up this series.
Well, thank you very much again for having us. It's a pleasure to talk about it with you.
So everyone stay tuned because I will be back with incumbent Chuck Madden right after this commercial. And we're back with Chuck Madden, who is our incumbent and school board candidate. And before the break, I mentioned that Chuck has 24 years of service on Radnor Township School Board. So Chuck, what is motivating you to want to continue your service on the school board?
Well, my motivation hasn't changed. I became involved because of my two children, and I wanted to ensure that they were receiving the best possible education that they could at Radnor. So that was the first time I ran. And since then, I've been involved with making sure that as many as possible, if not all of the kids that we serve, will continue to get an education that they deserve. So my motivation has been the same. My perspective has changed because since I first ran, I then went back to school and became a teacher. I then continued for a master's in educational supervision and curriculum and instruction supervision. Was in the doctoral program for education at Radnor University. So I see firsthand what should be done through the educational system where I was a student. And then I taught for 15 years in special education classroom setting for autistic support, and also 14 years at Delaware County Prison as a special education teacher in prison. So I come from different point of views of seeing how it's supposed to be and living the reality of what it really is. And then when you flow into that, I retired, and then I became an adjunct professor at Radnor. So this past summer I taught a course in assistive technology, which is part of the special education program, which gives the students that I'm teaching who will be in the classroom the opportunities to learn from somebody who also was in the classroom. Sometimes adjunct professors bring a little more applied knowledge to the courses that they teach. But what I try to do is to take all of that together and look at what we're doing within our school system. And still excited about it.
Right. Oh, great. Yeah. Well, you touched upon something I wanted to know next, which how does your work and life experience apply to your experience on school board? And you answered that brilliantly already. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Well, I believe in lifelong learning. I believe that in order to learn, you need to be comfortable. You need to be in a safe setting. We need to begin to craft our educational delivery more with concerns of each child. And it's funny that you should ask that, because part of the movement I think that we can look at, because we know a lot about IEPs and we know a lot about GIEPs, but if you really take a look at the children in the middle, we have a collective type of an IEP, okay, where especially in Radnor, where we do team teaching and we have teams that look at the kids as they go through, and the different teachers can see what the different kids need and what works and what doesn't work. So in a sense, it's not an IEP, it's not an individualized education plan, but it's pretty close as we're monitoring each child as they go through. And we also have a very competent and fantastic counseling contingency that makes sure that we don't leave anybody behind.
Great.
definitely work for all of them.
And is this a policy? Is there a policy that's driven behind some of your passion that you work on in this realm, or is there another particular policy that you are interested in, that you are working on now, that you'd like to see through in your next administration?
One of the policies that may come to us on, I serve on the policy at this point, and I also serve on the curriculum committee. The homework policy is something that we will be looking at, and that's part of the movement to start school later, so that many of the parents that came and discussed this with us, they felt that part of the reason why the students were not getting to sleep was because they could stay up, and for instance, you could post your assignments up to 12 o'clock at night. So, therefore, some kids may get home and start on it. Say, I have an hour worth of homework, I'll wait till 11 to start, and then I can post it still. So that would be one of the specific things that we could look at. But I think what I hope we do is we begin to look at what the purpose of homework is. The purpose of homework. And the purpose of homework is to reinforce the knowledge and to possibly connect it to the prior knowledge that you already have. Now, if you accomplish that in the classroom, the homework needs to be more than a rote type of homework. It needs to be more of an in-depth homework that are making these connections a little better, a little stronger, a little deeper. And I believe that those are the things that we're going to look at besides just the length of the homework. Just saying, well, we're only going to assign 1 hour. What type of 1 hour are we going to do? If it's a homework that is reinforcing, or that is motivating the child or exciting the child to do more. Part of what our education program should be, it's igniting the learner, so that when they go home they'll continue to learn. Now there's so much learning, self-learning, that can go on. Many people believe, and I'm also one of them, that there's different types of an education you get. You get an education, if I'm the teacher and I teach you, you're receiving what I'm trying to give to you as an educator. But then you have to take that knowledge and educate yourself. You have to be able to do that. I can't do that. I can help you with the knowledge that you may want to connect. So as teachers, we need to excite the students. And as many people say, when the eyes begin to dim, we have to try to bring the bright eyes back. By the way we teach.
Well, thank you. And what is the most important responsibility of a school board, to your knowledge, collectively, holistically?
Well, we have one employee that we evaluate, and that's our superintendent. And we have the responsibility of hiring the superintendent. The superintendent is it's almost we'll say he's the captain of the ship of a cruise. If you look at it as a cruise, and we have many different components that are in there, and he has to manage those. So we need a superintendent that's a good manager, which we have. We need a superintendent that's an educational leader, which we also have. And with those two components, he needs to be able to reach out and staff our school district with the best possible people that either we have, and if he sees that we need to begin to shift in a particular way, then he can bring training in, that he can send our people out to pick up classes through professional development, so that the superintendent is moving us in the direction that the school board directors point to him. It's like, for instance, if we're the directors and we say, okay, we're going to go to Florida, and we end up in Greenland. It was a safe journey, everybody was happy, but we're in the wrong place.
Right.
So the directors basically give direction. We have to monitor where we're going. Okay, and that can be difficult because you can be accused of micromanaging if you jump in too close, but we do have to know where the ship is going.
Right.
And right now, we're pointed in the right direction, and I believe that we're doing very well.
Ken Batchelor is great, so you guys are really doing a good,
extremely well. And Ken
good job
Batchelor
steering
is
that
also,
ship.
he's also going for his doctorate at Radnor University.
Oh, fantastic.
Yep.
Good, you have that in common.
Yeah, we do. We actually have the same advisor.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, which is
very
pretty neat.
cool. And who should set the rules governing board procedures and behaviors on school board, and who do you think should enforce them? Who do you know enforces them, since you've been part of the system for a while?
I would say that it's almost as if you have a classroom and the kids come in and you say, let's set out some ground rules here. Let's work together.
So the board is kind of talking about how to do this together.
These are some of the rules that we have. We need to respect each other. We need to be professional. Okay? And really, with respect and professionalism, and you need to be friendly, okay? You can get an enormous amount of things done. It really is a respect thing. For instance, if you're presenting a point of view that I may not agree with, okay, I need to be able to entertain that idea. I don't need to have I shouldn't have the ability to, you get finished with your presentation and say it's two minutes long, and you're talking about homework, for instance, you're talking about homework policy, and when you get finished, I immediately say, I think we need to discuss busing. So I haven't been listening to you. I haven't been entertaining that idea. So we need to be able to do that.
Right. Come from a place of open-mindedness and curiosity and not shutting down other people if you don't agree.
Yeah. It's almost like free speaking. When I first was on the school board many years ago, we had a Dr. DeFaminis was our superintendent. And I remember telling him one day, well, I'm a free speaker. There aren't barriers to what I'm talking to you about. I may throw out an idea just to hear what you have to say about it. That's all. I'm not asking you to buy into it. I'm throwing it out there. I would appreciate your feedback. And as a board, instead of really polarizing kind of a piece, that is a way not to polarize. It's just to give your opinion of it without saying. Just being respectful in your comments, that's all.
Right. Great. And what is your vision for education going forward in the community?
Well, as we move forward, there are a few different educational, I guess you would call them, strategies that you might come up. We hear this SEL.
I don't know what SEL is.
Social emotional learning is very, very important. And we're doing a lot of that now at the middle school. And that is tied with trying to help the students understand why they're there. One of the questions I ask, besides you said about the job, I forgot, I actually substitute teach at Conestoga High School, which is very enjoyable for me. It gives me an opportunity because Conestoga and Radnor are similar, I believe. Radnor might have the edge of being a little better, but that's just my opinion of things. But I ask the kids in the class when they come in, I said, why are you here? And some say, well, I have to be here legally. I'm required to be here. So we need to make sure that the students understand why they're there, okay? And make sure that they can begin to develop and apply some of the knowledge to help them to make their world a little better than it is when they got here.
Right.
So,
and so the SEL program, does that touch upon helping the kids to create some kind of attachment to school or feeling more comfortable there?
Feeling more comfortable.
Get their home away from home?
Yeah, the social and the emotional piece is, there isn't a anti-bullying piece that goes along with that. I mean, if you're striving to teach our kids the benefit of emotional learning, then they can recognize when it is going the wrong way. Okay, so emotional learning should be increasing your abilities, your qualities as a person, and bullying has no place in there.
Right, absolutely.
So that would be the one thing, and the socialization is another one. Some of the issues that I see are the use of cell phones, for instance, is a big issue with kids just opening up and using their cell phones and talking and things like that. Now, when I'm teaching, of course, I'm a substitute, which is a lot different than a regular teacher because I don't really know a lot of the students. But at the beginning of my class, I say, okay, can you please finish up your conversation? So I don't cut anybody off immediately. Say, please finish up your conversations, and then we can get started.
Right.
So I'm respectful towards them. And that I think gives them a little bit of responsibility.
Right. Well, speaking of, I don't mean to cut us off now, but I just want to, we are running out of time, but I just want to say thank you so much for coming and sharing with us why you want to continue.
Well, you're welcome.
With your 7th term, which is amazing. Do you know anyone who's run longer than that? Or has been on
do. One
longer?
of my mentors was Walter Senkow.
Okay.
Walter Senkow, I believe, served for 39 years.
Okay.
He was the president of the DCIU board, and at the time I was the vice president of the DCIU board.
Wow, fantastic.
And he was in his late 70s and a fantastic person. And he was a mentor for me.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your service and for
Thank
continuing. And with that, this wraps up our candidate interviews for Radnor Township School Board. If you haven't been able to see all of the interviews, you may go to YouTube and check it out, or you can go to my Instagram page, which is Community Voices at RadChan. And thank you so much for watching Community Voices. Take care.